Picture your grandfather. He wakes up at 5 a.m. No alarm, his body just knows. He puts on the same boots he's worn for 6 years because they still work, and he understood something most people forgot. You don't replace what isn't broken. He drives a car he actually owns, not leases, owns, to a factory where he builds things with his hands for 8 hours straight. He comes home. He eats dinner with his family at an actual table. He owns a house. He has a pension. He has health care that actually covers things, not a $6,000 deductible plan that covers everything except what you actually need it for. He retires at 65 with dignity and dies owning something he can pass down. He never read a personal finance book in his life. He never optimized his portfolio. He never built a personal brand. He never recorded a podcast about passive income or paid $997 for a course on how to think like a millionaire. He just showed up. And the system took care of the rest. Now picture you. You have a degree, possibly one that cost you $60. Zone, you're still paying off at 7% interest, while the government that gave you that loan is $33 trillion in debt itself. But apparently that's a different conversation for a different day. You've done the internships. You've networked. You've side hustled. You've consumed more financial content than any generation in human history. You've done every single thing they told you to do. Every single thing your grandfather never had to think about. And you are still checking your bank account on the 28th of the month with the kind of tension that should be reserved for medical test results. Hold your eggs, because this is about to get worse before it gets better. Your grandfather built things with his hands and took home the equivalent of $34 an hour in today's money. The median wage for a full-time worker in America right now is $22 an hour. That's not inflation doing normal things. That's not the natural evolution of a complex economy. That is a $12 an hour gap between what unskilled labor earned in 1965 and what skilled labor earns today. And that gap didn't appear by accident. It was engineered, carefully, over decades, by people who knew exactly what they were building and got extraordinarily wealthy building it. But before I show you exactly how they did it, and I am going to show you exactly how they did it, with names and dates and numbers that don't lie, I need you to understand what the world looked like when the deal was real. Because the deal was real. This isn't nostalgia. This isn't a rooster crying into his luxury suit about the good old days. This is math. Median home price, $7,354. Median household income, $3,300. A house cost 2.5 times your annual salary. You saved, you bought, you owned something. The math was simple enough that a person who spent their entire day doing physical labor could understand it without a financial advisor. In 1954, 35% of American workers were in unions. Now, before anyone's feathers get ruffled about politics, this isn't about politics. This is about leverage. What a union actually is, underneath everything, is the ability of a worker to say to a corporation, "You need us more than you're paying us for." And have that statement actually mean something, because there are enough people saying it at the same time that the corporation can't just replace everyone by next Monday morning. That leverage produced the world your grandfather lived in. It produced the $34 an hour in real wages. It produced the pension. It produced the health care. It produced the house that cost 2.5 times his salary. And it produced the CEO who only made 20 times what the average worker made, which felt like a lot to some people at the time. Those people had absolutely no idea what was coming. Don't burn your eggs yet. We're just getting started, because here's where the recipe for disaster begins. Wages stopped keeping pace with productivity right around 1979. Not an opinion, a graph. Between 1979 and 2020, productivity in America, the actual value created by workers, increases by 62%. Wages for the typical worker increase by 17%. The worker creates 62% more value and receives 17% more compensation for it. The other 45%, And sit with that number for a second. 45% of the value you created that never came back to you goes to profits, goes to shareholders, goes to executive compensation, goes to the people who own the machine, not the people who run it every single day. But instead of addressing that gap, instead of asking why the people creating more value keep receiving less of it, the system finds a more elegant solution. It gives everyone a credit card and calls it prosperity. Can't afford the house on your salary anymore? Here's a mortgage. And here's a subprime version for people who really cannot afford it. And here's a financial product built on top of that subprime mortgage that gets sold investors who don't look too closely at what's inside it because it's rated AAA, and the rating agency is being paid by the same people packaging the product. Everyone's incentives are perfectly aligned, just in completely the wrong direction. But don't worry about that. Sign here. Can't afford college? Here's a loan. And by the way, Congress just made student loans non-dischargeable in bankruptcy, meaning unlike every other debt in America, credit card debt, medical debt, business debt, student loan debt cannot be erased even if you lose everything, because apparently young people pursuing an education needed to be held to a higher financial standard than corporations that fail. The coup is rigged, and it's been rigged for a while. Can't make it to the next paycheck. Here's a credit card at 24% interest that will generate more money for the bank in interest than you originally borrowed. That's not a flaw in the system. That is the system, designed specifically and deliberately to work exactly that way. The American standard of living gets maintained on paper. The houses are there, the cars are there, the college educations are there. From the outside, it looks roughly similar to what your grandfather had. It's just all borrowed. And borrowed things, as any rooster who has ever lent another bird a seed can tell you, eventually come due September 15, 2008. Lehman Brothers files for bankruptcy, $691 billion in assets. Gone. The largest bankruptcy in American history. And Lehman is just the moment the curtain falls, the moment everyone in the audience sees simultaneously what was always behind it. An entire architecture of financial products built on mortgages that should never have been issued, rated as safe by agencies paid to call them safe, sold to investors who trusted those ratings, packaged and repackaged until nobody actually knew what was inside them anymore. All of it comes apart at the same time $13 trillion in American household wealth disappears. Not Wall Street wealth, your parents' retirement accounts, your neighbor's home equity, the savings of people who worked their entire lives and did everything right, gone. Evaporated by a system that knew it was building something unstable and built it anyway because the profits were extraordinary, and the losses, when they arrived, were always going to land somewhere else. Specifically, on you. 8 million Americans lose their jobs. Millions more lose their homes. And those homes, the ones families lose in a crisis they did not create, get purchased for pennies by investment firms with access to the same cheap government money being used to bail out the banks. Firms that buy foreclosed properties at a fraction of their value and rent them back to the same families who just lost them. Same crisis, same homes, same families. Different side of the transaction. Your eggs didn't just get cracked. Someone else made an omelet with them. And here is the part that the Rooster finds genuinely unacceptable. Not one major financial executive goes to prison. Not one. The institutions receive $700 billion in public bailout money within weeks. Emergency sessions of Congress, urgent language about systemic risk, too big to fail, while the executives who ran those institutions collect bonuses the following year because their contracts require it, and their contracts were written by people who work for them. The message is not subtle. If you are large enough and connected enough, your losses are public and your gains are private. The risk flows down, the reward flows up, and it has been flowing that direction for a very long time. The recovery happens, technically, Between 2009 and 2012, 95% of all income gains go to the top 1%. The stock market recovers, corporate profits hit records, and virtually all of it flows to people who already owned enough financial assets to benefit. Everyone else gets the recovery as a number on a screen, a statistic, an unemployment rate that improves partly because people stop being counted as unemployed after they stop looking for work, which is a very creative way to measure what's actually happening to human beings. The wound from 2008 never truly heals for most people. It gets covered with 15 years of near-zero interest rates and a stock market that makes no sense unless you already have money in it. And that bandage holds until inflation arrives, until rates rise, until the bill for 15 years of cheap money shows up at the door of the people who can least afford to answer it. Which brings us to right now, median home price, $436,000. Median household income, $63,000. A ratio of nearly 7 times your annual salary, nearly 3 times what it was when your grandfather was buying his house. A down payment of $87, $200 that would take the median American household over 20 years to save at current savings rates. A monthly mortgage payment that requires an income more than double what most households actually earn. Student loans that follow you like a bad habit with legal authority over your wages. Healthcare that treats getting sick as a financial event. Grocery prices up 36% in 5 years. Egg prices. And yes, the Rooster noticed the egg prices. Trust me, the Rooster noticed. That became a national news story, because the gap between what things cost and what people earn has become impossible to ignore, even at the grocery store. And through all of it, through every single one of these numbers, every broken promise, every system that stopped working for ordinary people while continuing to work beautifully for extraordinary ones, the message has been consistent. It's your fault. You don't have savings because you spend too much. You can't afford a house because you haven't been disciplined enough. You're struggling because you haven't worked hard enough, sacrificed enough, optimized enough. The system is functioning correctly. The problem is your habits, your mindset, your morning coffee, not because wages were deliberately held below productivity growth for 4 decades. Not because housing supply was systematically restricted to protect the asset values of people who already owned property. Not because an entire generation was loaded with non-dischargeable debt at 18 years old before they understood what non-dischargeable meant. Not because the people who caused the largest financial crisis in modern history faced zero consequences and received public money to recover while ordinary people lost everything. The coffee. It was always the coffee. Here's what the Rooster needs you to understand before this video ends. The same institutions that broke the system in 2008, the same banks, the same financial firms, the same people who packaged those mortgages and collected those bonuses and received those bailouts, are the ones now sponsoring the podcasts, telling you that your mindset is the problem. Chase Bank runs advertisements about financial wellness. Goldman Sachs built a consumer savings app. The firms that bought your foreclosed homes now produce content about the importance of building equity. The system that cooked your eggs is now selling you the recipe book. That is not a coincidence. That is a strategy. Keep people focused on their individual behavior, so they never look at the structural conditions that make individual behavior almost irrelevant for most people most of the time. But here's what they miscalculated. When you take away the dream, when the math becomes undeniable, when even people doing everything right can see clearly that the numbers don't add up, you also take away the compliance that came with believing in it. The person who believes the system will eventually reward them, keeps working inside the system, keeps consuming what the system sells, keeps assuming the problem is something they're doing wrong. The person who sees the system clearly stops being manageable in the way the system needs, And there are more of you seeing it clearly every single day. The margin between what you earn and what you spend is the only leverage an ordinary person has in a system designed to extract as much as possible from you for as little as possible in return. Every dollar that doesn't go to a subscription you're not using is a dollar that doesn't require you to show up somewhere tomorrow. Every month of expenses sitting in savings is a month the system loses a little of its grip on your decisions. Every purchase you don't make on 24% credit is a future version of yourself, working hours they haven't worked yet, and choosing not to burden them. This is not about deprivation. This is not about suffering your way to financial freedom. This is about understanding that the game has different rules than the ones they taught you, and that the first step to playing it better is seeing those rules clearly instead of through the version of them that benefits the people writing them. Your grandfather inherited a system that someone before him built, fought for, legislated, organized to create. He benefited from a deal that took a generation to negotiate and 50 years to dismantle. The dismantling is documented. The numbers are real. The history is not a conspiracy theory. It's a paper trail, and now that you've seen it, you cannot unsee it. The economy is cooked. That part is not changing tomorrow. But whether your eggs get cooked with it, whether you hand over your financial future, one automatic payment and one forgotten subscription, and one 24% interest charge at a time, that part is still yours to decide. The coop is rigged. But you still choose which direction to walk. Don't get cooked, Rooster economy. See you in the next one.